Welcome to The Choice to Grow. I'm Scott Schwenk. Through these dialogues, we'll explore fresh perspectives and discover practical tools for navigating a thriving life that adds value wherever we are. I'll introduce you to innovators and creators from across our world who embody what it means to cultivate growing as a way of life. Let's prepare together. Take a deep breath in. Hold the breath briefly as you soften your shoulders and soften the soles of your feet and palms of your hands. Then exhale like you're releasing tension and setting down a heavy burden from every cell. Now let's dive in. Welcome back, everybody, to The Choice to Grow. I've got another dear friend here that I've known for a very, very long time. We met something like 22 or 23 years ago. And one of the most memorable moments is when Adam turned to me in the car before they all dropped me off, stuck his hand out to shake my hand, said, "Scott Schwenk, I want to be your friend. Will you be my friend?" Two people in my life that I'm aware of have actually done that. The other one is my buddy Zach, who we'll get on here at some point. Adam Garcia, after training with Kerry and Glenn Dumbrells Capital Performance Studios in Sydney, Australia, David Atkins and Dein Perry, if I'm saying that right, kindly offered a slight detour from the pursuit of biological sciences. He is a total David Attenborough geek and science geek by taking him touring around Australia with the musical Hot Shoe Shuffle. And that show carried him to London, where he was lucky to have a varied and expansive career, including 12 West End musicals and plays. One he just recently directed and created himself. He's appeared in numerous films, such as Coyote Ugly, Riding in Cars with Boys, Flight of the Conchords, Afterlife of the Party, The Serpent Queen, and most recently, Adam has completed Jonathan Church's production of 42nd Street as Julian Marsh, a new film, The Performance, about vaudeville tap dancers' experience in 1937 Berlin, and also achieved writing, co-choreographing, and co-directing the Irish and tap dance show Emerald Storm that has completed its first tour of the UK. So without further ado, let's just dive right into it. Adam, I'm so stoked to be with you. We hardly get to see each other in person, but wherever we are, we always pick up where we left off. Welcome to the show. Welcome to The Choice to Grow.
Thank you so much, Scott. It's so lovely. Yeah, like you said, every time we get to connect, it's like it never went away, and that's, I'm so glad I got to say, "Hey, will you be my friend?" Because it's really worked out.
It was one of the most touching things. Like, if you imagine being on the other side, I don't know if somebody's actually done that, like who you wanted to be friends with and they were sincere and just that raw and real.
I guess, yeah, there are moments where, and I find it's quite childlike, to say something like that. And I've got two young children, two young girls, and every now and again they'll just do that. We were just on holiday and there was a girl in a pool in like this little hotel in the middle of sort of France, and they were sort of splashing about and she looked lonely, and my youngest one was like, "Hi." And the other one was like, "Hi." And she was like, "Hey, you want to play?" And the girl was like, "Yeah." But it's as simple as that. It's like, "I would like to do this. I will ask you." And that's as simple as it. And sometimes, and simplicity is often the best way when to uncomplicate ourselves. That's when things really happen.
Well, and to give a little bit more of background about my experience at that moment, it was just like a totally different iteration of myself.
Yeah.
I mean, 20 some odd years ago, let's see, I'm 53 now. So I would have been in my early to mid 30s. And at that time, it was really recent that you had just been in these Hollywood blockbuster films as the lead.
Yeah.
So as somebody who was an escapee from creative artists agency working there and, knew who you were, saw you in the film and quite straightforwardly, had a crush on that character. It was like this whole turning point that was so simple. It was so simple. about like, wow, this is a person and I'm a person and we both have hearts and we both want to have good people in our lives and we get along really well. And here we are, we're going to be friends. And that's all there is to it. And it just so happens that we both have these tasks or jobs that we do in the world, but that's the pinprick on who each of us is and who each of us is with each other.
That's absolutely right. You know, and I was thinking today, I'm friends with Sir Trevor Nunn, and it sounds impressive. And he's a knight, and he ran the RSC, and he
Royal
ran.
Shakespearean Company, for those of you who don't know what that is, which is the premier place. When I was in acting conservatory, they were my heroes. The people that came out of the RSC, Kenneth Branagh, Emma Thompson, Patrick Stewart, so many incredible, I mean, Ian McKellen, like people who could do Shakespeare perfectly in the middle of the night, woken up from a deep sleep, is the
Yep.
RSC. So your friend,
Yeah,
Sir,
and he's a much older man. He's directed me twice. You know, he directed Cats originally, Les Mis, uh, Starlight Express, uh, Sunset Boulevard. So I mean, he's done everything, and you know, I was in awe of him when I first met him because he was someone like you were saying. You know, it's this thing that we create. It's like their whatever it's status or superiority or whatever it is. It's like that person's great, and I feel, you know, very privileged to be, you know, even to be acknowledged by them. And then slowly, like every year I go to his house for New Year's. That's now a tradition. And then we go and then we started to have lunch together. And he's in his 80s, but there's something that we really like about each other. And it was that thing that I finally acknowledged only probably last year when I actually worked with his daughter. And he came to the show and we went out for dinner and his daughter was like, "Oh, you guys are going out for," and I was like, "Yeah, that's what we do." And it struck me as like, yeah, here's this guy, but he's just this incredibly interesting 80-year-old man and we get on.
yeah,
But I had to take a moment to be like, of course, it's Sir Trevor Nunn, but now it's not Sir Trevor Nunn. It's just Trevor,
yeah, exactly right.
just a
It's,
guy.
and that's the thing that is so available, right? Like when I look at that from a lot of perspectives, and one of my favorite things about Adam or you, Adam, is you can keep up intellectually. And I'm not calling us particularly smart, but there's an ability that's been there for a long time to see things from lots of perspectives and like play in conversation and discovery from lots of perspectives all at once. So as I look at, what we're talking about, it's like we're all just fingers on one hand. And yet at the same time, I put my hat on my head and my shoes on my feet.
Yeah. And it's as as we started with, it's like you can complicate things so much
Yeah.
and and intellectualize yourself into a corner and not be able to see your way out of it. But intuitively, when you just make it simple, make us people, and get rid of those, just those things we're put in our way, then it becomes easier.
The phrasing that's coming up in my kind of inner ear right now is giving ourselves a seat at the table. And not in some sort of like narcissistic or solipsistic kind of way, but like to give ourselves a seat at the table. You have a past, I have a past that the way I held it told me I needed to keep proving my value and my worth, and it still would never be good enough, whether it was for a cool friendship or a cool job opportunity or whatever. Like there was this always this albatross hanging around my neck of I'm not enough.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and the turning point of giving myself a seat at the table.
Yeah. And that's acknowledging your own lack of self-esteem or acknowledging your own lacking, and sort of, you know, making a choice, making a conscious decision to be like, hang on a sec, that doesn't serve me.
No.
It doesn't get me what I would like or how I would like to what I would like to see in the world, and it does you a disservice. But I mean, I've fallen into that trap loads of times, constantly, in fact, and it's that's one of those things where you're like, hang on a sec, no, it's like there's no reason why I can't have a seat at the table, why there can no why there can't be equality, and that comes also, there's humbling moments in our life where I have a sense of superiority, and then suddenly I'm, and children do that really, really quickly to you because they have no concept of status yet.
Yeah.
And you can be all like, well, I'm this. And they're like, I just don't care. And you're
I
like,
want my macaroni and cheese now, the way I
right.
asked for it.
Yeah. And I think, humility and those humbling moments can really inform yourself at the same time as the difference of thinking, oh, I'm not good enough to be at this table, for instance. And you're like, why not? They're just other people. And look, here's the thing. You can never stop someone from wanting to be superior or wanting to dominate. That's not our position. We can't make those decisions. We can wish, but there's always going to be other people who are resistant to that.
Yeah. And then the ability for me to now be like a cork in water, just go around. Just go around. Okay, I don't need to bang on the wall. I'm going to go feel around for an open door.
Yeah. And sometimes it's like, it's fine. I don't need that person. What am I, and why do I think I need that? And you're like, it's like you said at the beginning, it's like sometimes you find someone, you're like, that person, that's the sort of people I want to be around.
This guy, Zach, I mentioned, wizard at PR and comms, wizard is particularly digital comms. And I remember his first day coming into Equinox in the locker room, as the gym that I belong to. He sets his bag down, sticks his hand out over the thing, says, "Hi, I'm Zach. I'm new here." I completely flashed immediately on you when he did that. I did him and his husband's wedding, their baby blessing ceremony for their first kid. Like, I mean, we're family at this point.
Yeah.
We're family. And the courage that gave me between you and Zach to do that myself, to be
Yeah.
that
I mean,
straightforward. You're interested or you're not interested, but I'm going to stick my hand out because you seem cool. Hi, I'm Scott. What's your name?
yeah, it's remarkable when things like that happen. Um, we have a mutual friend, Kai, uh, and that's what Kai did. He just sort of came and saw me in a show and was like, "You're a really good dancer. I want to know more about you." And I was like, "Right, oh, okay." He offered an invitation, and I accepted it, and it was,
What I hear about you, that one of the things that endears me to you, and now that I have the phrasing for it and title of the show for it, is, and I originally was just describing it to myself when I was marinating for far too many years on doing a podcast and just kind of sitting on the fence getting splinters, was about people who choose the path of mastery. And the way I mean that is people who are always choosing to grow and refine their craft and capacities and cross train without setting up camp and saying, I've arrived, ever.
yeah. I mean, I'm definitely, I might phrase it differently, and perhaps for me, I don't believe in perfection. I don't believe it necessary. Uh, I I also, most of the time, in a good or a bad way, on a probability, I'm probably wrong. That's kind of like if I'm coming to them, like, there's a good chance I might not be right about this. And that can be that can be quite negative, but it's also in a positive way. I'm like, well, that means it still means I need to be open, not to the possibility of being wrong, but learning and going, what else could there be? What more is there? Um, and whether
That's
that's,
one of the levers right there. That's one of the levers of the choice to grow. We
yes,
haven't really deftly articulated all these yet, even begun to scratch the surface in the episodes that are out. But like that right there, that ethos. There's, I was naming this yesterday. I was giving a talk at a big business conference. This company Kajabi that hosts my website, and I reminded myself and them of this quote I've been carrying for years from Werner Erhard. He said, "True clarity can only arise when one is willing to consider there's something I do not know, the knowing of which could change everything." Like that's one of the hallmarks of all the people I find most interesting is that openness while committing fully to whatever we're doing.
Absolutely, because it would be the very example of hubris to think one knows it all. Um, and there's I'm in a creative world, so collaboration is key, and to try and control that, to try and wrestle that and anchor it to your own, only your own sphere of knowledge is dangerously limiting. And I've been very lucky to work on lots of things where most people, most of the time, on any level, are open and need that collaboration. Where we're like a fungi in the soil, like all the biome needs us, and we need that biome in order to move forward. And it's interesting, like the idea of choice to grow. It's something that I've become more conscious about. That is just the consciousness of choice. I sometimes forget I've got a choice. And you can simply go, wait a second, I can choose anything. I can choose whatever I want. So what do I want to choose right now? I know I'm instinctively wanting to choose this, but what if I choose the other thing?
Yeah.
I can choose to be afraid, but why don't I just choose not to be?
I don't know how much this influenced you or if you came in this way, simply, growing up Australian. But we have a shared group of friends who I haven't seen many of in a long, long time. And I remember when one of our friends, Nicholas, was inviting me to meet everybody for the first time at Kai's house for what we called Thursday night football. There was no football involved. And Nicholas said to me, I was still at CAA at this point, and Nicholas said, "Here's the deal. If you want to come hang out with this really cool group of people, many of whom do a lot of inner work, you got to agree to certain principles." And I was like, "All right, what are they?" He said, "You've got to be willing to ask for what you want. You've got to play bigger than you know yourself to be. You got to be willing to be responsible for your own experience and your own emotions." And that's really the sum of it.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to say I've perfected that, given we're talking about perfect, like not even close, but I'm always reflecting on, am I coming from there? Am I coming from that choicefulness? Am I remembering that nobody's creating my emotions? They may be acting like a jerk, but I don't necessarily have to be, going on the ride and go from, 0 to 60 in my mood. I have choice when I remember I have choice.
Exactly. And I think, we went to many Thursday night footballs, and they ranged from just really good fun and sometimes incredibly profound.
Yeah.
And
And
the point,
sometimes just so much laughing that would not stop.
oh my God, so much fun, so much ridiculousness. But it was a practice. That
That's
was the
right.
point. That was the point of it. It was to be like, so how do we help each other do all those things that you said, all those caveats, which is like, how do we act in, how do we play into that bigger thing that we didn't know we could be? How do we take care of our own emotions? How do we figure out what we ask for ourselves? What do we want? And that was all amazing practice, and
One of
also
our friends
very
said to
fun.
another of our friends years ago, said, it was just kind of musing, but going for it out loud, said, I'd really like to be able to walk on the ceiling. And so our other friend, who's quite strong, so he goes, okay, let's give it a go. And so he figured out a way, kind of like acro yoga, to hold her upside down with such amount of support that she was able to have the experience of walking across the ceiling.
Wow.
Check that box. Like, but had she never asked,
Well, that's right. That's it. That's exactly it. Had she never asked, had she never voiced it, had she never put it out there, you know, that person, like, yeah, that's a really lovely story.
Well, it's so easy, it was for me as a kid. I was bullied tremendously. I didn't know how to fit in. I've said this so many times on the show. I was like a puppy with big legs and a lot of energy, but didn't know how to organize it. So it kind of knocked things down and didn't realize how to collaborate really. And so I grew up not thinking people wanted me around. It taken a lot and was waiting for other people to invite me to things in hope. Cut to, I sit here today and go, there's no waiting.
Yeah.
All I've got to do is invite people, and who wants to will come, and who's not up for it or not a fit doesn't. I was at a black tie annual holiday party a couple of years ago with a good friend of mine who's incredible writer and executive producer for Drag Race, for RuPaul's Drag Race. And he's mixed it up with, who's who of who's who for years. Because when Ed Lamato was alive, the old head of ICM, he would go to Ed's house all the time, and Ed would introduce him to all these different folks. And we walk in our black tie outfits, and there's all these really, well heeled, well dressed, very fancy looking gay men. And it could be a lot intimidating for a lot of people. And he pulls me to the side and he goes in my ear. He says, remember, everybody here is worried nobody's going to talk to them. All you've got to do is say two nice things that you mean, and they're going to be eating out of the palm of your hand.
Yeah, it's a really good point.
And it works. And it's, you don't want to weaponize it. You got to be really truthful about it. But like everybody's waiting for somebody to invite them or to include them. And when I trust that I can choose to be that person and welcome people in, suddenly there's a group of folks who all want to hang out together and collaborate.
Yeah, it's true, and it's one of those moments where not only do you make the choice, but sometimes you're just relaxed enough that you don't get in your own way.
That's right.
And then suddenly you're like, oh, I'm just having a chat. Just having a
Yeah.
chat. That's fine. That's easy. We're just talking. There's no, it's all those fears, like you said. And they come from places. They really do. They come from legitimate places and sometimes completely irrational places. But it's about figuring what those are and going, probably just need to relax.
One of my favorite tantric scriptures points out how consciousness lost itself and went under the delusion of feeling separate, small, not enough, and all this business, and how it finds its way back. And it uses the analogy of a show, a performance, and says the actors, the story, the audience, the script, the lighting are all made of one substance.
Hmm.
You're an actor. You've done it professionally. I went to conservatory. I never went on afterwards with it. Uh, but I've always had it close as a contemplation, like, wait, when I remember, I'm playing a role of Scott. And there are many ways to write that role. Like, I'm not stuck with the ways that I was socially constructed as a child or as a young adult. But many people believe and forget this is a role. It's made up. I'm just pure consciousness inhabiting a body. And with the right tools and practices, I can release those identifications and explore another way to move.
Absolutely. And look, when you're saying that, I recognize that happens to everyone, but the examples would be, people go on holiday and no one knows who they are. And suddenly, or they go to a completely different city, or they literally move because they feel limited where they are. And people know them, but they can reinvent themselves somewhere else. And that's quite an extreme way of doing things. Um, and it still means that you think you should hide something, or like you said, putting on roles. But also by the same token, I'm sure I became an actor because it allowed me to try on different human costumes.
What's a
Uh,
costume you'd like to try on? Like if you had total freedom, and maybe you really do feel the total freedom, like what's a costume or a role that you'd like to try on for a bit of life if there were no constraints?
in real life,
Yeah.
wow, that's a good question. Now, like I'm going to pause, but yeah, that's a really really good question.
Like, would you want to be like a David Attenborough, for example, in a different life, a different outfit?
For sure, yeah. Look, I'd like to be a research scientist. I'd like to. There's many things like even being a hermit. That's sometimes one of those things where it's like, and my actually my mum was saying something recently, which is she doesn't believe she's very imaginative. And she's like, and that's fine. She doesn't need to be. But she loves books because someone else is creating a world for her to inhabit. Other, and I'm sure, going back to your question, yeah, there's loads of sorts of characters that I guess they're perhaps they're the way they live, like a hermit or a farmer or a scientist, will imbue me with some other characteristics, whether it's sort of unbelievable patience or knowledge of this. But I guess in that in that respect, I could just choose to do that anyway. Like, what is it like to have patience or to contemplate what a hermit would contemplate? Or so,
When you
yeah,
say hermit, you don't necessarily mean just somebody avoiding society. I think you mean somebody who's pursuing a contemplative life.
yeah,
Yeah.
more monastic. But that's still,
Yeah.
I guess, that's still sort of. But people in monasteries aren't isolated. They're with a lot of other people
No.
like minded.
Even if you're in silence, you still have to deal with everybody at dinner.
There's still a lot of people like going through and trying to achieve stuff. So oddly enough, I had a conversation with David Attenborough about being monastic. I met him a number of years ago, quite by chance, at this weird sort of dinner for a charity, and we were introduced and we were talking about gorillas, and he was likening certain animals to, like, being isolated, and he was like, it'd be very nice to live a sort of monastic life. And I can understand that because, I mean, where can he hide?
Right.
Where can David Attenborough hide? Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and I think I'm sure everyone has those sorts of wishes where it's like, yeah, I'd like to either be noticed or I'd like to not to be noticed. There are two facets of the same coin.
And then I've gotten the fortune of interacting with people for whom that's fallen away.
Yeah, right.
And that's a whole other depth of the kind of embodied grounded freedom that we're talking about.
I mean, that is, one of my favorite books is, I'm sure most people have maybe, is Siddhartha by Hermann Hesse, which is,
Yeah.
the story of Buddha. And that's the whole thing, is like he wants to do this and he wants to explore that. And he wants to, what is he missing from here? So maybe he needs to try that. And he'll become a impoverished and a hermit. And he'll become a rich lord and he'll become dead and he'll be a fish and all these things. And eventually he just sits by and goes, oh, look, I don't need any of that. I just need to accept this me, life, the river, the flow. Mm. And maybe that's it. That's where we get to, hopefully, is just the acceptance of this is me, all those different facets.
Yeah, what is the me that inhabits the role? Like it's very easy, I imagine, for some listeners to go, "Oh, well, me. What do you mean, the me that's a certain age and has a certain bank balance?" No, that's not. At least how I hear Adam is, who or what am I? Does it outlive the body? How do I get to know it? What happens if I do? And how does that fit into the relative life of being in a body is still going on? Like cars are still driving by, garbage is being picked up, you know, people are laughing and giggling with their children, horrible war atrocities are happening, like all sorts of things are seemingly happening when my attention goes outward. Can I have both? Can I learn how to recognize whatever it is that we are without having to pull out of participating with society?
I mean, the word that comes to me is acceptance. Acceptance of what's happening, acceptance of really seeing who you are. And beyond that, loving that, giving it love. No matter if it's good, maybe if the acceptance has to be of like some things about myself that I don't like, and to be like, well, that's part of me. It's not all light, but I still have to love it. And I've done some. I'm not sure we spoke about. I've done some inner child work, and that's the very nature of that is to be able to almost parent yourself. Now that I'm a parent, I can be like, so what if I was my kid, how would I nurture my child through whatever that moment is? How would I allow that child to realize that it can accept those things, it can acknowledge them, it can take responsibility, and it
And
can,
there's a methodology. There's
yeah,
a methodology for that. Some of the people are doing parts work about it. I love the work of Daniel P. Brown and David S. Elliott out of Harvard. Daniel P. Brown was simultaneously, and if you've heard this, hear what's new in it, listeners. Daniel P. Brown was a associate professor of Harvard for 35 years. He created what's called the Attachment Project, which he's deceased. He died a few years ago of Parkinson's, but the Attachment Project still lives very robustly. One can actually put in their information and type out a questionnaire and get a sense of their attachment styles, how each of us uniquely forms and deepens or doesn't relationships over time. And they've sorted out how to heal it. There's a
wow,
thick volume with tons of footnotes and research that they've been doing um, about healing attachment disturbances in adults, moving us to secure attachment style. And there's three things, just three things. Number one is practicing the ideal parent figure protocol, which is meditating on as though there were totally enlightened, totally attuned, enlightened parents with me in this moment. I don't have to explain a thing. They know exactly what I need. And to actually get into the receptive mode of experiencing that through the nervous system. Number two is developing greater and greater metacognition, the ability to think about my thinking and pivot my thoughts, and to actually reflect on my emotions and pivot. And then the third one, and they all go together, is developing greater and greater verbal and nonverbal collaborative skills.
Hmm.
Now, with this comes what I call the five transmissions. These are five things that are present that they've researched when there's healthy attachments in relationships. Attunement, I see you seeing me, I feel you feeling me, I don't have to explain myself. Safety and protection, soothing and comfort, expressed delight. Great job. Wow, amazing what you just, wow, what an improvement. And support and encouragement for one's best self. So, coming back to what you're saying about parenting oneself, in my own way, that's how I reflect on parenting myself. Like, what would a loving, ideal, enlightened parent do? I had a really intense week a couple of weeks ago. Really, really intense. Car got T-boned, brand new car after having had an accident last September. And it was a guy making an illegal U-turn, but it just was what it was. But my nervous system was just overstimulated, like just off the rails for about
of
36
course.
hours. And I go, what would a loving, enlightened parent do right now? And I remembered there was a box of chocolate chip cookie mix in the pantry. And I remembered that there was also a chocolate bar that could be chopped up to add more chocolate. And I'm like, that's what I would do for my kid. Not like, instead of dinner, but like let's make cookies, let's put on some fun music and just chill out.
Yeah.
Like that was the most loving, attuned thing for that moment.
Yeah, and it's as you said, of the I think that was the second point of the person from Harvard you mentioned. It's that attuning, that figuring out. But they're both. You did all those things. You did all the three steps, which was
Yeah.
what would an enlightened parent do? What am I needing? What would I ask for? Which is that verbal and nonverbal skills, and the second one of just figuring out what is in me right now that is bothering me so much. Because often that's one of the things that I've been working on is like I get bothered by something. My wife made a joke. I think it was the other night. I was in the shower and I couldn't get a cap on something. It was, and I was like, "Oh, come on, that's just stupid." And I didn't realize I was saying it. And then I got out of the shower and she was like, "You all right?" And I was like, "Yeah, what are you talking about?" She was like, "Were you having a fight with an inanimate object?" And I was like, "Oh, yes, I was. I certainly was, and I won." And but it's a glass jar with a lid, for goodness sake. It doesn't do anything. But it's that moment where you react. You react, and there's something underneath. There was clearly something underneath that reaction where I was frustrated. And all it was is that I knew there wasn't a lot of hot water lost, and I was already prepping myself for a cold shower, and I was annoyed. We had plenty of hot water. I totally made that up. We had hot water, but I was preparing myself to get angry at everyone. Was like, "I knew you'd have the shower too long," and it was like, and it was all expectation. I could probably link it back to like I was just really wanting a shower, but I waited for everyone else to have their shower first.
And or the
I
strategy
didn't
was that
acknowledge
was the
me.
strategy. The shower was the strategy. The outcome was I want to feel relaxed and the shower is going to give it to me.
Yeah,
And
I was
nobody
like,
get in the way of my strategy because that's the only way I can see getting relaxed at this moment.
this is it. This is the answer. That's the only answer. Total rubbish.
And then
Um,
the cuteness of your wife's response, and you're more relaxed after that. She brings some humor and some love to it. But like this is just it, and I keep reflecting because it's you and I on how much I see the value of and wish for more people to have a depth of experience with acting and movement training because of what they can make available to the ready and the willing. What are your
I'm
thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, look, I was having a conversation. I'm doing an interview tomorrow, and we did a research call, which is what you do before you go on the TV interviewers, because they need to know all the stuff before you say it. And this lady happened to be, she was an amateur dramatic, so she was quite excited about the show that I'm about to start rehearsing am rehearsing. And in any case, she was talking about whether I would have my children follow me into the arts. And I was like, I mean, they're so young. I can't possibly, I have no. If they do, that's great. If they don't, that's great. Also, but they do sing and they do dance and they do love. They're quite creative and they draw and one of my daughters loves to animate. She makes stop motion films for herself.
How old is she?
She's 10.
Okay, okay.
But she loves making, she gets all these, she makes claymation and she makes up these stories, and it's fascinating. But they go and do little drama classes and dance things, and it's like you said, like what the arts do for it, just the simple expression of it, just to get out things that you might know that's in your body, whether it's through movement or drama or singing or painting or drawing or sculpting or any of the facets of the arts. And we had this conversation because they're starting to cut arts funding in the UK for schools and things like that, because it's not important.
Oh God.
It's not deemed to add anything
Wow.
to a person's development.
Meanwhile, it adds everything.
And I mean, it sort of goes against the grain because, I mean, ironically, London and the UK being like literally one of the pillars of theatre and creativity, and in a commercial sense. Um, they certainly see the value when it's like, but this makes us lots of money. But
Mm,
the value in people having the arts, and how it helps them express themselves, and helps them communicate with other people on how to be creative, or to create something, or just invent something. Just
yeah.
that is, priceless.
That's a whole other fascinating world. And I know you're involved in that invention. It's one of the pillars of rhetoric. One of the wheels of rhetoric is inventio or invention. Like, what do you see about the process of invention? Given that, I mean, I don't think there's an individual who actually invents anything, but more we tap into something.
I mean, I think on a as you know, I love biology, and I've always said that the gift of humanity, besides the opposable digit, is the fact that we have a real gift of learning and remembering. So I couldn't come up with algebra. I don't think I could have, but someone did, and then someone could teach me. I'm like, that's great. Or how to do a computer, any of these things. We are brilliant at retaining knowledge and passing knowledge on. And we talk about invention, and there have been moments in our lives where we've come up with something as frivolous or ridiculous, but incredibly funny for us.
Yes.
And it came out of sort of nowhere. And the next thing you know, we've got a characters or a sketch or a concept of the world, and it's invention. We're borrowed. I know I've been healthily educated by the great comedians from England and all over, and I you know and just reading or any of these things can add into us, and then we let it out, and we share it with other people. I mean, I guess on a as a tap dancer, uh, it's sort of nothing's written in tap dancing, so it's definitely an unwritten rule that you pass on your knowledge. So no matter how great you might be in the ranking of tap dancers, your job is to teach. Your job is to then pass on all your steps, your rhythms, your style, your influences to the next people, whether that be in a jam or just teaching class or whatever that is. And it's part of the culture, is to pass on your knowledge. And it's one of those wonderful things, like the young tap dancers that I see coming up that I've been involved with or tap, like they've got everyone's knowledge, and you look at them and you're like, wow, that's the next, that's where you go. And surely the generation after them be like, holy crap, that's where you can go with that. And that's music, and that's the beauty of those sorts of things, passing on one's knowledge. And we're just an amalgamation of all the knowledge and experiences that's passed on to us.
Well, and I think this is where it gets fascinating for me is your understanding of and your fascination with biology. What I'm presented with as you were talking about that is a plant growing seed.
Hmm.
Like, okay, if plants grow seed, trees grow seed to propagate the species, and they do evolve
Absolutely.
over however much time that plant or species evolves. I'm thinking, for example, of like magnolia trees apparently existed before there were bees. So they
Right.
believe it was pollinated by some sort of beetles. But the magnolia tree has continued to evolve. I mean, it's now lining Sunset. When I moved here, they had just planted them, and it's lining Sunset Boulevard. These beautiful, huge magnolia trees that also grow these seed pods. It's like, well, we're not separate from nature. And so, what can we learn from nature about how to live a best life for the sake of everyone involved, everyone and everything involved? But this passing along is like key. Like, who am I to hold on to it? And how am I to claim any ownership? Whose was it before it was passed to me?
Well, that's it. you know I guess that's absolutely it. Like, I guess it's it we all think that we are the result of our own of only our own actions, but that's both folly and fallacy. It's impossible. Yeah, we are the sum of experiences, as I said, the sum of experiences and knowledge. And as you said, what I liked about what you said is like, yeah, who would we be to not pass it on, and why would we want to simply hold on to it?
Yeah. But we have to get over ourselves to do that effectively.
Yeah. And well, that's again, it's like getting out of your own way, just being, people will take. I've had many experiences where, both professionally and on a personal level, where people have gone, oh yeah, if I hadn't met you, I wouldn't have thought like this, or if I hadn't seen you in this, I saw you in something and I said, I want to do that. And you never know, you can't have control over what the world can take from you. Your only responsibility is to be you and to give, and that's it.
This is a good moment to ask you the question I ask every guest. And it's
Oh,
based on a quote, my favorite quote from one of my favorite quotes from Shunryo Suzuki Roshi, who opened the Zen Center of San Francisco in the 60s. And I think you would really enjoy his bio, his book, Crooked Cucumber. He grew up in Japan in a very different era, training as a little boy to become a Zen priest. It was not an easy life. There was a lot of challenge and abuse and melodrama and, feudalism and like this. But he gets to the States and he's very cooked as a being, as a teacher, still admitting he has faults and places to grow. And he would say, death is certain. The time is not. What is the most important thing? So for you, Ad, what is the most important thing?
it's a big
And I know
question.
putting the other a recent guess is like
No,
that superlative of the makes it difficult.
I think intuitively, I would say the most important thing is being thankful for what you have right now. I always have to come back to that, about all the dreams or aspirations or the things that I might do in the future or the failures I may have had in the past. And then I look at that gratitude is the anchor for me to go, this is lovely. This is beautiful. I have friends and I have family. I have love. I have me. I have God. And so I think the most important thing is, it's gratitude for now.
Hmm. Now, lest people think that you've had just easy breezy life from start to now, surely you've had some really challenging, maybe even downright debilitating circumstances. What would you want to touch on or bring forth from any of that, oriented through the choice to grow and the parenting of oneself and the gratefulness?
I mean, there's been a lot of, obviously lots of people have hard things, but on a personal level, from my father was an addict and had a pathological liar, and that was something I had to really go through and learn forgiveness, and that was a really growing experience. Just the experience of knowing that a parent is just a person, and addiction is terrible. And that all that rage I had towards him for so long, which was incredibly corrosive and damaging to me, when I realized that He did literally the best he could. That was a huge moment that I could be like, it's not pity, um, but it was, I guess, that essence of being able to go, he could help what he helped, and he couldn't help what he couldn't help. And he was just a person.
I had to come
But
to that with my own dad. I don't know if we ever discussed that, but that was the most difficult relationship in my life. And currently, he's excommunicated me as of 5 years ago, I think it's now.
right,
Yeah. Yeah. And it was always been difficult. And he was an addict, and he was a rageaholic. And we lived at a time, you and I were kids at a time when corporal punishment normalized physical abuse. And
mm,
I was, handled pretty freaking intensely to the degree of bruises and things like that. And it's taken years to get to that point of view of, wow, this is a person who did the best he could with the energy state he had at the time, who does love me, even though he was pretty much the main beneficiary of that love. And yet he did the best he could, and that forgiveness, while still having room for some of the upsurges that can come in a certain moment. A memory fragment arises, and there's a part that sometimes goes, fuck that guy. But it's
yeah,
not meant to be weaponized or to direct harm. It's an acknowledgement of the experience, not a
for sure.
victim position, not a victim position at all.
No, and those things, as you said, like it's so. I'm not sure if it probably is fully possible to exorcise those things out completely, but the human body holds those physical and non-physical scars. And that goes back to what we were talking about, attachment. If you have someone who, as a child, you need certain things and that's not provided, it's very, very confusing to why that person couldn't choose to provide that. And the only thing most children come up with is, it's me, I'm the problem.
Yeah.
um and that is the most damaging thing. That's the hard thing. And to then realize that it's like, it's flipping that narrative and saying, it wasn't me. It's they couldn't provide me with what I needed, so I have to figure out how to provide myself, or the universe or God or friends or love or other things. And because it's about worth, it's about how you view yourself as worthy of those things. And we are. You are. I am.
When we talked about passing on the knowledge, I know that at different points, and tell me if you are now, you've actively taught, you've created opportunities for people to learn with you. I'd imagine, just sitting with you just in this conversation, that the real learning is not so much about technique and this, but more about learning about oneself as a part of a system of other living beings. But tell me a little bit more, or us a little bit more, about you passing along your knowledge, and are there opportunities for people to study with you that are coming up, or learn with you?
um I mean, in a dance context, yes.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Like, the dance is the
Yeah.
front of the offering, but there's this whole other thing that's going to happen for people if they're actually available to it.
I mean, I guess what I've learned, when I do teach, or if I do, create a show, or I direct, or even now I'm rehearsing a show, and there's a director, and there's a musical director, and there are other actors. um and it was something I learned with our friends, our mutual friends, when we sort of had to give ourselves names. I like bringing joy. And I like the fact that what I do, it doesn't have to be that serious. Um, it's it's fun. We pretend. We literally make believe for a living. Um, so we can all I can all get swept up with when the pressure's mounting, or a show's about to open and things are going wrong. It's like it's just it's a show. It'll
Yeah.
be it'll be a moment in time, and people will love it. But I always want my casts to have a good time. I want them to feel joyous that they can have a great time on stage and have a great time creating, a great time collaborating, because it just makes a good room, makes it fun for me.
Yeah. Are there places for people to study with you, like in terms of dance?
I mean, not at the moment, unfortunately, but if they're in the UK, I do teach from time to time. I had moments when I was like teaching almost every week, which was amazing, getting to go all around the country. But for at least the next 6 months, because I'm touring with the show, I simply won't, probably won't have the time or capacity to.
And this show is what?
So I'm doing a show called The Bodyguard, based on the Whitney Houston film,
Kevin Costner, yeah.
Evan Costner film, amazing film. So there's a musical of it, and it's yeah, we've just started rehearsal, so we go on tour all around the UK start of September, and it's a 6 month tour, so I get to go all around the country, and that is fun. I have to say, it yeah, England's a really funny place. All the different cities are so, like, if you want different accents, like, and different cultures, like, it changes within 20 miles. It's remarkable.
I'm remembering that movie, and the only one I recall singing was the lead female, which was played by Whitney Houston. So this is a musical. So obviously, or I would hope, you get some amazing opportunities to sing, yeah?
No,
No?
no. This is a really, I don't sing and I don't dance in this show, but everyone else does.
How is
I'm the
that for
body.
you?
It's it feels like it's like a kind of a relief, because when you're touring with a show, and or doing a musical, like, you have to be incredibly disciplined. Like, your day starts and you're basically monitoring your voice and your fitness and your fatigue until you perform for those 2.5 hours that are quite intense, and you need to be on. You need to be, you know, giving the show that people are paying money to see. Um, Plays, this is a play for me, and obviously you still need to take care of myself, but I it I'm not going to crack on a note because I don't have any notes. Um,
But do you itch? Do you feel like a trigger finger, like to dance, or to like
it's
let out an aria, a moment of sound?
it's going to be it's that is going to be really difficult. Like, I've never done a music. I've done lots of musicals, but I've never done a musical where I don't have to do the singing or the dancing part. I have a feeling I'm going to be really envious. I know the choreo. I've already seen the choreography. It's so good. I'm like, oh. And he's not meant to be able to dance, and he's not meant to be able to sing. Like, he's completely foreign to this world. And so, yeah, it'll be a really interesting role, because he is not a singer and not a dancer.
And
He's
yet, what that
singing and
provides, the contrast that role is necessary to provide and to really inhabit. I mean, it brings me back to senior year. I and some of my co-students in the conservatory program put together and got funding for it, and got the university to give us a theater to do Shakespeare's Twelfth Night.
right.
And we got this incredible director, Aaron, whose last name I'm unfortunately forgetting. Incredible actor who was not a university professor, but he was the husband of one of our professors. And I remember him pulling me aside. I was given the role of Sir Andrew Iguchi, which is the clown role.
Right.
And anyone who really knows Shakespeare, which I was still in a learning curve at that moment, knows that the clown role is one of the best roles in the entire play. Like you just get to explore so much. But due to my then insecurity about my sense of self and my looks, he pulls me aside and he goes, I don't know what you're doing. He goes, you're trying to play this like it's a leading man, and it's not. You're going to destroy the role, and you need to play them as a clown, as a buffoon, as a fool. And if you can't, I don't care that you put the show together. I'm going to cast somebody else in this role.
Yeah,
One
wow.
of the most important growing moments in my entire life that I will never forget.
Yeah. Did you get to play the role?
I did. I did. I did. And we spoke on the phone the other day when we were talking about doing this podcast. I said, there was this moment, it kind of reminds me of when I was a kid and get my own desk away from the group desks in grammar school because I was too chatty. I was chatting backstage with some of my co-actors, and it was my moment to go back on the stage, and I needed to bring a letter. The letter, Shakespeare is not accidental. You cannot ad lib Shakespeare, although we talked about a friend of yours who has. Audience doesn't necessarily know, but you can't. It's in iambic pentameter. It's in verse. It's so precise. It's an algorithm. It's
Yeah.
advanced theoretical math. And so that I didn't bring this letter on stage, and people couldn't say the thing they were supposed to say.
Amazing.
We had to
Amazing.
figure it out.
Yeah, that's one of those moments on stage where you're like, yeah, that's invention.
And they all wanted to kill me when it was over. They played it through, but they were and understandably so, they were so upset with me. And rightly so. And I just, we have a saying in Tantra, take the
Yeah.
blow and like learn from it.
Oh, yeah.
So it took a lot of years, but I've taken that blow and continued to choose to learn from it.
I mean, I have a feeling that if you went back to all those people now and you got to tell that story, they would laugh.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, remember that time where you didn't bring on the letter? Oh, that's so crazy. Like, how
And
could
how
you
many of them might
do
have
that?
actually forgotten that entirely? Go, I don't remember that.
Yeah. Or like, no, that really happened? Oh, I mean, that's the thing. Like in the moment, it means so much.
They gave me as a prop, this I did remember being around, this long bright yellow umbrella with a wooden handle that wouldn't open.
That's funny.
Yeah.
That's a good prop.
Yeah. Really good prop.
That's the sort of prop a clown needs.
And the freedom to be a clown, back to
Yeah.
freedom and choice, the freedom to be a clown and to bring play and invention. Like I think that's what a really good clown or fool can bring is the wisdom that doesn't need to seem important, but can transform the point of view through play, folly, and invention.
Yeah. I mean, I've done some clowning courses. They're incredibly different. The concept of buffoon, and it's not quite childlike, but it's the idiot. It's the it's a person that doesn't know. It's the unknowing person. So there's no guile. There's no malice. It's yeah. It's really difficult. It's a wonder. The clowning is wonderful because it's just spontaneity and ridiculousness and slightly chaos and
And
impulse
wisdom. And
and
wisdom.
yeah, internal wisdom. Yeah, the wisdom of not having other layers of society. All those masks, all those things. The clown doesn't have that, so I don't need it.
Like in the tarot, it's often called the fool.
Yeah,
And yet one of the most powerful cards that can come up in a tarot drawing for wisdom. One other thing that strikes me in our conversation is yes and. Every time we're hanging out,
Ah,
yes, and for those of you who are listening and don't know, yes, and is something that you learn when you're learning sketch comedy, a way to collaborate with other people. If somebody just says no, the sketch stops, the play stops. And something that Adam and I always play with and never discuss is, oh, yeah, and, oh, yeah, and
yeah.
say a little bit more.
I mean, yeah, it is. It's an acting exercise. It's a sketch comedy thing, and it means, yeah, it's asking play or the play, but play to continue. It's just a wonderful exercising of making sure there's momentum and progress.
So,
Um,
how do you see bringing that to real life, so called real life?
for real life. I mean, again, it's a practice. It's something that you often don't. I often don't do. It's like it's a no. I just can't. It's a no. Um, but the whole point of the game is choice. Although they're taking one choice away from you, and that choice is you can't say no. So it's just offering you. Well, you can say yes, and that yes can be as many different ways as you want. You just can't say no. And so I guess when you're faced with a no in real life, you're like, well, I have the choice to make. What if I say yes? And I can take responsibility for how that yes looks. You know, there's yes, and there's also boundaries. Boundaries that keep oneself safe, I guess, to a degree.
Or, yeah, perceived sense of self safe, or one's children safe, or one's spouse
Yeah,
safe, or one's business safe.
yeah,
Yeah.
and
So it's not like, oh, I have to say yes to everything, including, asking, somebody asks, can I cut your hand off? And, oh, sure,
yeah, like,
yes. No,
yeah,
no,
yes, but no, but yeah,
no.
that's just a no. No,
Anything
you
else you'd
can't.
really want
The
to
no,
leave
you
us
can't.
with, Adam?
What's that?
What's that? I was going to say, is there anything else you want to leave us with? It's kind of, if you just get quiet for a moment, like, is there anything else about the choice to grow that really should just be with the choice to grow in your life? You imagine your children growing up and really having that empowerment of the choice to grow other people's children.
I think, I love that you've named it the choice to grow because it's a wonderful mantra of 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 saying, yeah, I have that choice. And I can't imagine not choosing that, but I'm sure there's been times where I've made the no choice. Um until I'm very lucky friends who go, hello, why are you saying no? Or myself or the universe goes, what's going on there? Why,
Yeah.
why are you saying no? Why are you not choosing to grow? Because that's the wonderful thing about choosing to grow is what, what is that? What does that look like? What sort of person will I be if because I know I know what I am now if I don't choose to grow. This is it. There's the limiting factor. The choice to grow more is it's um it's endless possibilities.
Thank you. My heart is full. It always is when we connect. And I so deeply appreciate all the small moments you've lived through that have brought you to this moment to show up and share and play and say yes.
Yeah, I'm delighted and grateful to be here. I'm glad you said yes to being my friend.
Me too. Me too. That tickles me. That's really nice. So everybody, we're going to come full circle as we do and end the show being together in silence. There's a lot to experience through words, and yet it's a pinprick of what's available in connecting with other beings or even a tree. So we'll spend the last few seconds, 10 seconds or so together in silence. You can soften the soles of your feet and the palms of your hands like you're opening tight fists with your mind. Let your breath come in sweetly and go out longer and slower, which slows the mind stream and the heart rate down. And we'll just be here together for a few moments.
Loving the episode? Click to follow, like, and share it as widely as possible. Want to go deeper with the Choice to Grow? Explore the show notes. You'll find links there for going deeper with our guests, as well as how to work with me in the work of waking up, growing up, cleaning up, and showing up. Thanks for listening. Can't wait to join you in the next episode.